Welcome on today's conversation on the future of work, where AI isn't just a buzzword, but a business driver. This is Lenovo Work Reborn, live in Orlando. Jason, thank you so much for coming by our podcast booth and doing an episode of the Work Reborn podcast with me. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jason Granat. I am the Director of Information Systems for Wish Farms, based out of Central Florida. And I run the technology side and the data and analytics side. So I'm responsible for all of those teams and basically function as our C-level executive. So I find myself in the day-to-day and then also on the strategy side, so both tactical and strategic.
Have you always done this? Did you wake up and go, I'm going to do technology for a living?
I did, yeah. So I'll date myself a little bit, but I cut my teeth programming on our Commodore 64 when I was like 6 or 7. So
Wow.
yeah, I knew from a young age that I was definitely going to go into the technology side, and it's just something that's always been with me. So.
Well, you're an awesome interviewee candidate because we've really been interviewing top voices and leaders within the IT landscape, especially those that have been around for a little bit that are kind of leading the way in these new initiatives like AI and employee engagement. But particularly one that I'm very excited to talk with you about today is sustainability, because I think everyone hears the term sustainability, but not everyone, depending on where you're from country-wise, Europe is a little bit ahead of us here in the States,
Right.
actually knows what the heck to do with that as a concept, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, AI itself in that capacity. A lot of organizations are seeing it as resource intensive, but from our research, we've seen that it can also optimize supply chains, it can automate lifecycle management, and it could even reduce waste. So in your experience, do you feel like AI is a sustainability challenge, an enabler, or both?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and I'm going to take the normal technology answer, and I'm actually going to say it's both.
Okay.
Right. So I think that there's a component of that where we look at the supply chain and things that individuals are interested in these days. Very much, where does your food come from? Is it grown sustainably? Just to use the word, unfortunately, in the definition.
Yeah.
But it's something that consumers are becoming more and more open about and vocal about. So the idea of AI allowing for you to do that quicker, the faster that we can get produce to you, right to the store to you, the longer that's going to stay in your fridge, the more that you're going to enjoy, the cut and the bite of those nice sweet strawberries, right? So I think from that perspective, AI as enabler, right, to allow for you to make those decisions faster and to help with some of that interchange between provider and customer, right, to help kind of streamline some of that, I think is something that's definitely on the horizon for it, right? On the other side of that, where I said both, I think that, when we talk about AI, we talk about, the costs and things like energy that are associated with those. And very similarly on the agriculture side, right, there are costs and things associated as we put fruit in the ground, right, to make sure that it's nourished and grows well, right, and becomes that, great looking piece of, fruit or vegetable, or whatever you're going to put on your plate, right, or drink. I think that's definitely a question that's across the whole industry, right, not just ours, but I think AI has sort of shuffled that to the front with that idea of, all of these big data centers that you see and the energy usage there. So a little of both, right? A little column A, a little column B on that one.
I think that's a balanced way to view it, though, especially because it is fairly new for leaders to be implementing rather. I think that I agree personally. There's so much innovation and so much that we don't know that's to come with AI. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like how have you and your organization been dealing with the adoption of it overall? Like it's a long process. It's not like, let's do this immediately type of a thing.
It is. And I think a lot of that comes down to the basis and that footing that you put in, right? It's very easy, especially as you look at it from outside of a professional setting. Yeah, I could fire up any of your, local chat sites, right, and say, hey, let's talk, and I want to answer a question on mechanics or food or what the weather is going to be like or why does this thing happen, right, and do like some deep research. I think it's made that very easy. I think the transition for a business becomes when you start talking about wanting to put your data in those, you have to be much more skillful about how you craft what I've categorized data as being okay. So there definitely is that piece there where you have to make sure that what you're putting in is not going to be something that I would want to share with a competitor or maybe even a friendly competitor,
Right.
right? So there's that level set, right? You can't, unfortunately, to be cliche, you can't build a house without a good foundation, right? And I think that AI is very similar in that regard, just like a lot of these transformative technologies that we've seen over the past decade, right? When we talk about cloud and big data and business intelligence before that, right? I think it all comes down to that foundation.
Diving deeper into the sustainability part, if you look ahead 5 years from now, do you think sustainability is going to be built in as a natural part of AI enabled, of our workforce, or rather than just something that IT leaders need to justify on its own?
I think it's something that's going to be baked in there. And the reason I say that is because we've seen such exponential growth with it. I think that there is going to become that inflection point where you have to just bundle that together and know that in order to get this outcome, I'm going to have these, 3 or 4 things inside of my bill of materials to get that. So I do think that it is going to be built in. I think we're just at the tipping point now where it's so new and we're just trying to figure out what we can do with it and how we can leverage that for a lot of those companies out there. That I think that stuff, when you start talking about the sustainability side and whether that will be packaged in, I think that's something that will come. We're still trying to we've walked into the candy store, right? Our eyes have all lit up and we've just sort of looked at everything that's on the shelves and we're still trying to figure out, well, I want one of those and I want one of those and I want one of those. So that's sort of where we're at. And I think we'll bundle that in. We're just not quite there yet, in my opinion.
I think to kind of round out this really insightful conversation around sustainability, which I really appreciate you coming by to have a
Yeah.
quick chat with me about, I wanted to kind of end with a little fun question game. We do have a partnership with FIFA. We're helping them as a technology partner to bring technology to the global stage.
Awesome.
So we want to kind of do a bit of a, European football draft, if you will, okay? So if you were to have AI be on your soccer team, what position, or football, what position would you have AI be? Goalkeeper, striker, or coach?
So that's a really interesting question because I think that AI could obviously fit into any of those positions. And I think it really depends on what your goals would be for it, right? So for us, I definitely look at AI as something that's transformative for the employee to say, hey, what have you done that's great? Let's continue to make that excellent, right? Let's find that little bit of an extra lever that we can pull for that. So honestly, when I think about that as like a striker,
Okay, yeah.
right? So being able to say, hey, you put the ball in the net, you're kicking that goal and you're getting that, 5 times out of 10. Well, let's bring something in that gets you doing that 7, 8 times out of 10, right?
Right.
Those beautiful curves that you see as the goalie's hand is just not quite fine enough to get it.
Yes.
That's what I think of when I think of that. So great question though.
Well said, Jason. Thank you so much for being on the show today. If anyone is interested in learning more about how we're bringing new life to the modern workplace and checking out a copy of the Work Reborn research report, download it via the link below, or a QR code is available here for you to scan. And that's a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us live in Orlando for this amazing episode of Work Reborn. I've been your host, Rita Risha, and it's been a pleasure to bring you insightful conversations from around the world, especially at this event, on how we are bringing new life to the modern workplace. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to stay tuned on more ways that we are doing just that, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe our channel, and download a copy of the Work Reborn report today.
Lenovo.